Hello everyone, welcome to yet another day in this clown decade, the decade where things are only going to get worse before they get better. If you want to keep up to date with all things clown decade, do subscribe to this channel and of course become a channel member. Right, there was a rather important suggestion put forward by Nigel Farage along with one of the grooming gang survivors who was supposed to be working with the government's national inquiry, Ellie Reynolds. However, the inquiry's died a death. Basically everyone important who is involved is leaving and is basically demanding that Jess Phillips go as women and girls safeguarding minister because she's useless, was gaslighting them. It was all said in the press conference. It's been all over the news recently, and Nigel Farage made a huge announcement about this at the Reform press conference. And amazingly, this has to be one of the worst reported things I've seen of Reform so far, given the importance of the situation and the fact that, well, this is going back over a decade to use powers that Parliament has to try and get something moving when it comes to the grooming gangs, because we've had 5 months since the announcement that Labour were going to do a national inquiry was announced, and it's basically dead in the water. Dead as a dodo. It's not going anywhere. It's quite literally part of the cover-up yet again at this point. Because ultimately I'm with Trevor Phillips.
What's coming together here is a really horrid combination that nobody really ever wants to talk about, which is the intersection of race and sexual predation. The issue about the grooming gangs inquiry is very straightforward. The government clearly never wanted these two things to be put together. And I suspect that their big reason for not wanting those two things to be put together is that much of this took place in areas which are run by local Labour councils.
And this is precisely the problem. So Nigel Farage decided to circumvent all this and just said Parliament should carry out its own investigation, have its own subcommittee or commission to investigate the grooming gangs itself. It has the power to do that. It can turn itself into a court, it can compel witnesses, gather evidence itself, what have you, and given it's all centralised, can be done relatively quickly, at least that's what Nigel Farage says. The Reform leader suggests a joint initiative by both the Commons and Lords and could lead to the launch of special commission into the decades-long scandal. He was speaking at a press conference alongside grooming gang survivor Ellie Reynolds. Mr Farage said he was planning to meet with the Commons Speaker Sir Lindsay Hoyle to suggest Parliament use its extraordinary powers to look into the scandal. He also said he would be writing to Dame Karen Bradley, chairwoman of the Home Affairs Select Committee, to propose that a subcommittee could be set up quickly. He said, "I am saying here is the most enormous opportunity for Parliament and indeed for this government to restore some public trust in the institution and those that currently inhabit it, on an issue that has been gnawing away at our public consciousness for well over a decade." That is about the only summary I have seen of what the press conference was actually about. And before I get into what the media would rather talk about, let's just let Nigel Farage quickly explain what he means by having Parliament make a select committee or commission on the case of the grooming gangs, because he was on his own show as a guest.
So, 2 months ago, I went to Washington to testify before the House Judicial Committee about the situation with free speech in Britain. I had to put my hand on the Bible and I thought, wow. I thought, why doesn't the British Parliament, why don't our committees have these powers? Well, funny enough, I was talking to Ranald Jayawardena, former Conservative minister, who said, no, we've all forgotten. Fred Goodwin was summoned, remember the ex-boss of RBS, was summoned to appear before the Treasury Select Committee after the banking collapse.
This is true, by the way. There is a whole transcript of the oral evidence that was taken at the Treasury Select Committee, and Sir Fred Goodwin was present at it in February 2009. And this is all Farage is asking for. Can we get people to be dragged into Parliament, because clearly the inquiry isn't doing it, and get them to submit evidence? And if they are found to be lying, we can do them for perjury. Parliament has this power, why not use it? It's that simple. The only reason that this is instead of an inquiry is because the inquiry is already dead, and Farage has absolutely no power over that. However, he is going directly to Sir Lindsay Hoyle, among other people within Parliament, to suggest that a select committee like this be done, and the Speaker would absolutely like and be on board with the House having moral authority over the people again, given, we vote in the MPs.
In 2011, the Public Accounts Committee were looking at wasteful money in public finances, actually got people to swear oaths before that committee. Now,
yep. Oral evidence taken before Public Accounts Commission. You have a load of members present, and then you have 3 private witnesses: Amyas Morse, Sir Andrew Lykerman, and Michael Whitehouse. Parliament can literally just bring people in and demand evidence. Crazy.
15 years has gone by. We've forgotten about all of this. Parliament has forgotten the powers that it has. It does have the ability to subpoena people to appear. It does have, albeit you may say these are ancient laws and not current now, but it does have the ability to sanction, including imprisonment, in theory. And it does, as it did in 2011, have the ability to make people come and under oath before committee in Parliament, give their statements, which, if they lie, could be open to perjury as well.
And that's all he's asking for, to get evidence for the damn thing, and it can be used by an inquiry. It's, if nothing else, to get the ball rolling, because at the moment, once again, it's standing still, dead as a duck. It's been front page news for quite some time, and yet, what do we end up with from journalists? This is all the Times had to say. Nigel Farage says Reform MP in advert row is not genuinely racist. This is what the Times had to say. This was their takeaway from yesterday's press conference, where you have a literal grooming gang survivor. Oh, but we need to talk about Sarah Pochin. Well, why would that be? Well, let's just see what she said. So a caller was going on about diversity in TV adverts and shows and things like that, and this is what Sarah Pochin had to say about that.
I think Stuart's absolutely right. Drives me mad when I see adverts full of black people, full of Asian people, full of, people that basically are anything.
What's wrong with that, Sarah?
White.
What's wrong with that?
Well, it doesn't reflect our society, and I feel that your average white person, average white family is, like, I agree with you, Stuart, not represented anymore in TV.
There are lots of white people on television.
The point there is absolutely fine, and in fact one I agree with. The start to the point, though, was absolutely horrendous. It was a colossally stupid way to put it. Sarah Pochin agreed it was a sloppy way to put it, and even apologised on Twitter. I don't really care to go through it because I want to rush through this bit because I don't think it's particularly interesting. Farage's answer to, the first couple of questions on this from the press conference was to say he's very unhappy with Reform MP for claiming there were too many black and Asian people in adverts. No, that's not what he had a problem with. It was her language saying that it drives her mad seeing all the black and Asian people on television, which is a stupid way to put the point, and when she clarified, she was fine, and literally the whole of Reform is behind her. But he said he did not believe she was genuinely racist, because she's not. She's on live TV. You say stupid things on live TV, especially when you're doing 5 stints of it a day, as Sarah Pochin usually is. Reform UK leader said that Sarah Pochin's remarks were ugly and taken in their own, could be read in a very, very unpleasant way indeed, but he would not be taking further action against her. He said, I don't like the way in which she did it. I'm very unhappy with her indeed. And if I felt the intention was deliberately and genuinely racist, I would have taken a different course. He said her comments should be taken in the context of the DEI madness. He added, I understand the basic point, but the way she put it, the way she worded it, it was wrong and ugly. And if I thought that the intention behind it was racist, I would have taken a lot more action than I have to date. Which the action probably didn't go beyond, you should probably apologise for that. I don't think Nigel Farage is annoyed with her beyond the stupid way she put it, and the fact that it completely ruined a day that was supposed to be all about the grooming gangs. Do you know how many questions were asked about this? Take a guess. And you're probably not far off. 8 questions from the media about this. 8. If I was Farage, I'd be pretty annoyed with Sarah Pochin. One stupid thing said within 5 seconds of live TV, and it's all over the news, it's all over the media, it gives the enemy a stick to hit you with, and he doesn't mind that, he's used to that. What he's annoyed at, and I'm annoyed at, to be honest, is the fact it completely took away from this incredibly important issue of getting a select committee on the grooming gangs. I'm kind of with Farage. It was stupid and ugly what Pochin said, but the worst part about it is that it took away from this press conference. And I don't think she's going to be making a mistake like that again, as she shouldn't. Again, her point was perfectly valid, and basically all of Reform were doing the rounds defending the point she was making, or the core point she was making, and all basically said, as she agrees with, at least based off her Twitter apology, is that the way she put it was stupid. It's fine. We do it. She's not going to get in trouble for it, but she is going to be selecting her words very carefully next time, as she should. But the press conference just got so ridiculous, and it was asked so many times, that Farage just stopped answering questions on it. It was just, you've asked this 8 times now, I'm not answering anymore, there's no way there's more information you can get out of me, this is ridiculous, talk about the grooming gangs for goodness sake. On top of that, this was a very Uni-party moment. Obviously, all of Labour were calling it racist, because why wouldn't they? But the Tories were even getting involved with it too. Here's Chris Philp, who, from I hear from the Tory side, is one of the more based ones.
Do you think it was? Do you think it was racist?
I think the way that she expressed that, yes, I think was, and that's why it's wrong, and that's why she should apologise. Yeah, she should not have said that in the way she said it. That was completely wrong.
But is there a question?
And yes, it was racist the way she said it.
It was racist, clearly. Okay, that's that.
The way she said that was, yes.
That's your view.
I do enjoy how even the Times radio journalists are having to make it clear of, well, that is your view, Chris Philp, not necessarily that of the Times. Whereas this is where the vibe shift is. 3-4 years ago, the Times would have just said, yes, it is racist. But now the Times is saying, oh, it's racist, but only in your view. And I think part of the reason for this, and I mentioned this yesterday on Twitter, is that, well, there's a good litmus test for the vibe shift going on in the Times comment section. The Times is largely commented on by kind of centre-left to centre-righties, and usually top comments a few hundred recommends, I think they call it. But as you can see here, I took this from an article about Sarah Pochin and her comments, and these are the 2 top comments. Al Perry, is she wrong though? Constant reminders on all ads that the correct marriage is a mixed race one, and all gas engineers are women, preferably from ethnically diverse backgrounds. All Pochin did was say what many think. Nearly 2,000 upvotes, well, recommend, sorry, when I took that screenshot. Second highest, A. Mills. Caribbean dad, Anglo mum, Asian child, absolutely ridiculous. Every time I see this sort of advertising, I make note to boycott whatever product is being flogged. I think that comment is going a bit mad, personally. I don't care that much about advertisements. But over 1,000 recommends. Again, typically, even for the top story, it'll be rare to see anything go over 1,000. And on this one, it's clearly hit a nerve. People are on Sarah Pochin's side. And so you might think, well, why is Nigel Farage showing that he is angry? One, it's to stop all the questioning, obviously. He's trying to talk about grooming gangs, for God's sake. Second of all, he's really annoyed that it distracted from the point of grooming gangs. I'm with him. If you're going to create a media storm like this, do not do it just before you're about to do a big announcement. That would be ideal. She didn't mean to do this, obviously. It was unintentioned. That's why she's staying, obviously. She's not a loose cannon like some other people in Reform have been in the past. But ultimately, Reform are doing the right thing. Central point she's making is absolutely right. DEI is out of control and trying to show people a society that basically doesn't exist. I think mixed marriages are like 1% of the population or something, but they are everywhere in advertising. And people get annoyed at that, but phrasing it in a way of, I get driven absolutely mad by seeing black and Asian people on TV, it's a stupid way to put it. Alright, it is stupid, and it took away from the point of the day. And that particular part of this issue is what Reform and Farage were annoyed at. 8 questions. 8 questions of, I think it was 12 journalists were asked to come forward. Over half the journalists asked about this. It's not good. In fact, it got so ridiculous that even Ellie Reynolds had to pipe up and say something about how ridiculous it was.
Okay.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah,
as well?
please do.
I find it quite, overwhelming as well that every single one of these medias has said something about a comment that was made by Sarah, which is understandable, absolutely fine. Yet it's taken medias decades to recognise grooming gangs that are coming over and raping our children because they're white. That is also racially motivated, and it is racist.
100%. 100%.
Completely with her. Why do you care so much about this stupid comment that's already been apologised for? Why do you care so much about this when we literally have industrial scale gangs who are grooming and then sexually abusing children? That is absolutely absurd. Anyway, we now come on to a lot of people who've been working on the grooming gang issue for some time, from GB News to Twitter to making their own institutions to try and tackle it, and a lot of them have criticisms of this proposal by Farage. We'll start off with Adam Wren, who is director of Open Justice UK. It's not a bad idea, it's a decent political move, but calling people to testify isn't some silver bullet. He never claimed it was. There was never a claim that this is a silver bullet, that this is going to be the thing that solves the whole of the grooming gang issue. The point is to get the ball rolling on something, because at the moment it's in a dead stop. You can sit before a committee and just say, I can't recall 10 times. Well, that's not what's happened in the past with select committees, so good one. That's not even happening with the COVID inquiry, by the way, though that's an inquiry, not a committee. But it's not what happened with the Treasury Select Committee and the one that Fred Goodwin was involved with, the Treasury Committee. It was that one. So don't know why he's making these points. Ultimately, what needs to happen is an inquiry with the power to seize files from the police and local authorities. Okay, I don't know how you've not noticed this. The inquiry's dead in the water. The inquiry's just not happening. We know Labour don't want it to happen. So it's kind of a pointless thing to say. Yeah, you're right, Adam. That's what we do need. We've been waiting 5 months for something to happen, and everyone's quit. What's the point in saying this? We'll basically never get to the bottom of this until that happens, but maybe calling people in to lie to Parliament before doing that is worthwhile. Guess what, Adam? If they lie, they can go to jail forever. So at least we have some level of justice there. Honestly, what a highly moronic thing to say when it comes to this issue. You get people in to swear an oath, oh, but they might lie under oath. Yeah, you know what, Adam, you're right. Guess what? It's still better than the nothing that's happening with the inquiry. You might be wondering why there are people who have been working to try and get justice for these girls are basically so easy to hand-wave away this idea of Farage, which has precedents, by the way, for working in the past with the Treasury Committee, with the Public Accounts Commission. You can set up a new Home Select Committee for this, or Home Commission for this. It will be cross-party, because clearly trying to set up an independent one isn't going anywhere, because the people that are trying to get involved from the police and social sectors, social care sectors, are literally part of the issue. Were MPs involved? Yeah, probably. That's why you cross-party it. Get Rupert Lowe involved. What's he got to hide? He has a few specific criticisms. Casey proposed concurrent local inquiries because the issue needs local investigations into the institutions in these areas that are failing. A commission isn't capable of that. Are they all going to call thousands of care home staff to testify in front of them? No, I think the point is to get the people at the top who knew about this in to testify while gathering other evidence for that. That's typically what the select committees do. They get COOs in, they get CEOs in, they get people at the top to testify rather than do the nitty-gritty that an inquiry would do. Why is that? Because the inquiry isn't going anywhere, it's already dead. I can't tell you how pointless it is to bring up, Casey said, to do an inquiry is, because we've had 5 months of waiting for that. It's dead. It's not being revived. It's already in the ground. Labour did that because of Trevor Phillips said before. It's mainly Labour's fault. So point 2, saying we could have the whole thing wrapped up in a few weeks, maybe months, is delusional. Thousands of people and hundreds of institutions are impacted. Again, he's acting like this is going to be an inquiry. It's not. Adam Wren has this wrong understanding that what Farage is asking is an alternative to the inquiry. It's not an alternative to the inquiry. Farage knows that the inquiry isn't going to happen and can't happen under a Labour government. So it's pointless even heading in that direction. So do something on it to keep trust in Parliament level, so that if reform come in with a majority or minority, they can actually do an inquiry properly. It's not happening for another 5 years. And so the reason that it can be done in a few weeks or months is, again, using historical precedent. What did the other select committees do? They got people at the top in, testified, got all the evidence together, published, took a few weeks or months. At no point has Farage tried to claim that he's got all the answers here. At no point has he said, this will be how we get people in jail. No. Everyone is kind of at the point of understanding that nothing's going to actually be done about the grooming gangs under this Parliament. Nothing happened under the grooming gangs with the Tories. Vote reform if you want something like that to happen. MPs are not the best people to lead this. Well, that's why he's getting Lords in as well. Many evidently understand the issue, and I don't think they have the ability, training or stamina to deliver what's needed. They don't have any power to bring charges or prosecutions. That is incorrect. Well, I suppose to be a bit more fair to Adam here. So if you commit contempt in Parliament, the punishments are quite weak. As a motion to try and punish the government for not fully publishing legal advice on leaving the EU, it apparently wasn't published, but the motion was not put forward. However, it used to be able to imprison or fine perpetrators as a court of law, but those powers have lapsed. The last time Parliament fined someone was in 1666, and the last time it imprisoned anyone was in 1880. There have been many calls to put the ability to fine on a statutory basis, most punishments on non-members involved, bringing them before the House to be reprimanded. In other words, this used to be a case, but it was over 100 years ago. And this is what Farage is saying. Historically, we've been able to do this. I don't see why we don't take it back for something as serious and evil, frankly, as the grooming gangs. But it is this whole mindset of, oh, Parliament can't do it now, why would you want to go back to something 100 odd years ago? Answer, because we're in a time of crisis, and we need to get out of it. Anyway, I would also make the point here, back to Adam Wren's point, that MPs not being the best people to lead this, they're ministers, and they are literally voted in to represent the people. I'm sorry, they are good people to try and actually see this evidence, and I think they should actually be given powers to reprimand people if they lie, or be sent straight to a court of law if they have been committing crimes. Anyway, last point. After a week of the survivors being hounded and receiving immense amounts of online abuse by people that think it's being orchestrated by reform, bringing one on stage and suggesting commission rather than inquiry is going to make things much worse for them. Oh, God, I'm not even going to address that properly. What are you talking about? Think of the abuse the other survivors are going to get by mental people on the internet. It's the internet. They're always going to get abuse. Ultimately, this is fine, it's okay, it's something that can be done alongside an inquiry, but it's not the answer. It's not a solution to the inquiry as presented. It's actually better than fine, it's good, as we've just gone through. Your big issues here seem to be you don't trust MPs, but for some reason you trust them to set up an independent inquiry, despite the fact we have directly seen they can't be trusted with that. What are you talking about? Charlie Peters also came out to say anyone who's read Louise Casey's Grooming Gangs review, which I did, will know that only a national inquiry with statutory powers for targeted investigations will expose the horror. Yes, it's not happening. They're ruining it. Nobody wants to be involved with it because Labour are basically trying to sabotage it from the looks of it. That's at least what the Grooming Gang survivors are saying. They've all quit. It's not going to happen. Who cares what Baroness Casey suggests? We've seen what Labour do with that suggestion. They try and frustrate it at every opportunity they can. There's no point trying to push for it anymore. We know that then they have the power to overturn it, effectively. They've got 400 MPs. And Jess Phillips decided to call these grooming gang survivors liars. Of course they're looking for alternatives. Because nobody has a trust in the world that a national inquiry is going to happen in the next 4 years. Reform's proposal for a parliamentary commission would be a let-off for those involved in the cover-up. That is a ridiculous thing to say. Charlie naturally got pushback for this ridiculous statement, with Donna S saying, Charlie, the parliamentary commission would have full statutory powers. Witnesses would be compelled. It is effectively a court and it's very rarely used. Rupert Lowe sits on the pack. Do you think he would let people off? FFS, stop with the pathetic reform bashing, it's beneath you. We haven't got 5 years to let the National Inquiry run its slow course, because everyone understands that this is what's happening. Oh, Baroness Casey says there needs to be inquiry. The inquiry's dead. It's not happening. We're not getting it for 5 years. Evidence to a parliamentary inquiry explicitly cannot be used in any criminal or civil proceedings. It is not reform bashing, it's just reporting an analysis. That's not true. It's not true at all. The Leveson inquiry, when they looked into the phone hacking scandal in Parliament, oh, guess what? They were all taken to court and had to pay out hundreds of thousands of pounds for people whose privacy they had infringed. Don't give me that, Charlie. That is not what happens at all. And Stephen Rawlings here even he just calls it out. To be fair, Charlie, that's slightly disingenuous on your part. Just because evidence can't be used, you can be prosecuted for perjury if swearing on oath. That's the law. Let's be honest, you have some fantastic work on this. If this puts pressure on Labour to expedite the actual inquiry, then fair play. What this does is pull another lever to put pressure on the government, which I would have thought you of all people would congratulate. Yes, exactly. This is to get the ball rolling on something, because at the moment, the inquiry's dead. This conversation carries on. Charlie totally gets that, but I think most people, least of all grooming gang victims, think the pressure should be on launching the inquiry properly, not abandoning it and launching a weaker alternative. Excuse me, but we had a grooming gang survivor representing this and supporting the alternative. And then we've got Rawlings saying the problem is, and this is the real crux, the main inquiry will, to paraphrase Nigel, kick the can down the road. Labour has three options. They refocus on the inquiry and start it properly under heavy scrutiny, which is the ideal outcome. Probably not going to happen because they have too much to hide. 2, agree to the committee as a precursor to the full inquiry, which shows they are actually on the victim's side. Yes, it gets the ball rolling. This is the point. Or 3, which I think they will do, is ignore this completely and continue to push this into the long grass, which puts Farage and Reform in good stead because they came up with an alternative like everyone always asks them to, and it was ignored. But here we have people who you would have thought would be all over this, saying, yeah, get the ball rolling, that's a good idea, because this inquiry is clearly dead. For some reason, defending the, oh, just get the inquiry going again, please. Pretty please, Labour. Are you kidding me? Do you understand how power works? Do you understand what's going on in Parliament at the moment? Do you understand that this is probably the biggest scandal that we still don't know the full extent of? Hell, we only just found out that London has a massive problem with it, and guess what? The Labour-run mayor, Sadiq Khan, was helping hide it. God knows what was happening under Boris Johnson as well, bear in mind. That's something to bear in mind, because not all these places were Labour-run. Hell, there was some in Oxford as well. It wasn't just poor working-class towns in the north that were suffering from this. Some were in Scotland. There's even said to be some in Wales. And, of course, Oxford, London. This was happening all over the place. It's absurd how much of this was going on. And I think trying to say that the only way forward and the only thing you should bother putting effort into is trying to get this inquiry going that's never going to lift off the ground with Labour in charge is absurd. Next up is Tory MP Robbie Moore saying he's extremely concerned by Reform's proposed solutions to the grooming gang inquiry today, which looks like a serious failure on detail. First, this is a huge national scandal which has corrupted so many arms of the British state. Any suggestion that a committee of MPs could get things sorted in a few weeks, maybe months, is completely wrong and does a huge disservice to the long-standing work of the victims and survivors. Again, completely ignoring the point that the inquiry is dead, it's not happening, and so you have a choice between doing absolutely nothing or doing this committee that will at least get people from the top to be compelled to give witness statements, and if they lie, they can be done for it. Second, contrary to the claims made today, a subcommittee of Parliament, which Reform offers as a solution, does not have the criminal enforcement powers to compel witnesses, or in the event they provide false statements, prosecute them. Both those things are just flat lies, by the way. They actually have the power to do both of those things. By replacing the inquiry with a committee, you instantly lose the strong statutory power afforded to public inquiries, blah blah blah. That's all just wrong. That's not true. This is an MP lying on Twitter. Third, replacing a full independent inquiry with a committee, it's not a replacement. Led by MPs, could end up watering down the process. Well, it's not a replacement, so who cares? Oh, Baroness Casey recommends the inquiry. Inquiry's dead, I don't care. These targeted local investigations will have a legal team. Yep, I know, you're right, it would be better. But it's not happening. So what's the point in pushing for this? This is what's blowing my mind. What's happened here is Reform have said, well, the ball isn't rolling with the inquiry, so let's have a committee instead to get the ball rolling on something so we can get some answers to this. You can't replace it, obviously, because Labour aren't going to push it. And then you have Tories come out, and for some reason they start defending the Labour inquiry. That's what's happening here. I'll just follow what Baroness Casey suggested. Doing that gets you nowhere. We know Labour aren't going to actually push for this to be put in place. If they did, they would have fired Jess Phillips already, but they haven't. I can't believe we've got to the point in the conversation where we literally have a Uni-party moment going on at the moment. Yeah, and it's not just people who are out-and-out Conservatives. People like Charlie Peters and Adam Wren, well, you might think that they're relatively independent, but, well, Look at who their girlfriends are, is what I'd say. Both of them are very much involved with the Tory party. Hell, Charlie Peters' girlfriend runs Next Gen Tories. Is it any wonder that they're in complete lockstep and making the exact same point as Robbie Moore here? This annoys me so much I'm not even going to entertain anything else he has to say. This is ridiculous. Needless to say, Kemi just retweets one of her own MP's absolutely ridiculous criticisms, saying, "Oh, Robbie is right, we need judge-led statutory inquiry into the rape gangs." Well, it's not happening, is it, Kemi? What is the point of this non-criticism? Oh, we need this to happen. Well, you're going to be waiting 5 years. Why wait 5 years when you can get the ball rolling on something else? Come on. Total Uni-party moment. Guess who else was in lockstep with this, by the way? Rupert Lowe. Alistair Harrison's his social media guy. Farage's idea of parliamentary panel replacing a national rape gang inquiry is poorly thought out. Again, all these people are saying the same thing even though it's wrong. Do you expect me to believe all these people just somehow came to the same conclusion that Nigel Farage wants to replace the inquiry with this? Or do you think they're all in lockstep because they're all talking to each other? Because I know what my assumption would be. The National Inquiry, once in proper operation, must be entirely independent of politics. How in God's name is it supposed to do that? I love how Rupert Lowe's saying this while he is literally running a rape gang inquiry with a bunch of MPs signing on to it. Are you kidding me? No, this is a party line. This is a Tory party line all these people have taken. This is the attack line on reform. And they are all defending, including Rupert Lowe here, Labour's failure to get a ball rolling on an inquiry. That is what's happening. It's a Uni-party moment. It's for FDS. It's everyone versus Farage and reform. That's what's happening here. If they all had slightly different criticisms, then yeah, maybe I would struggle to say that, but I can't come to any other conclusion. Oh, he thinks you can do a full inquiry with a committee in a couple of months. Same criticism there. No, not what he said. There's a deep, dark rot, and if Farage was truly interested in cross-party working, actions speak louder than words. We held an event in Westminster for survivors, MPs were invited, Tories came, Labour came, Reform did not. Lee Anderson posted a picture that same day enjoying a pint of beer. They clearly had the time. This is another thing that Rupert Lowe always does. Oh, people don't do this for headlines, do they? I'm just running this inquiry and then have a go at people when they don't turn up to my PR events. I've gone through the problems with Rupert Lowe's inquiry before, and hell, even Charlie Peters. In fact, I'm going to go through that quickly. In the replies to Charlie's tweet we went through before, someone ends up bringing up Rupert Lowe's inquiry that has no statutory or legal powers. We haven't heard anything from it for a while, which is basically true, by the way. The only updates you get are, here are what witnesses have said, and this is where we think grooming gangs have been operating. All of it was public knowledge, by the way, and stuff we already knew. It was just all collated, which does have its use, I'll give them that. But they only have 600,000, and as I've been through before, the whole thing's a safeguarding mess. They've re-traumatised women, and they are blocking women who have complaints about the safeguarding problems that they have. Because, I'm afraid to say, the whole thing's a PR stunt. But Charlie Peters is on the defence force for it. He shares plenty of updates, and there are excellent people working on it. Have to hard disagree with that. I don't think that's quite the case. And in fact, Donna Rachel, who was on the board for the rape gang inquiry until she started complaining about safeguarding, just came out and said, no, there isn't. They're doing a slapdash job for headlines only. Being called out by someone who was on the panel and then kicked off, yeah, not exactly looking good for Charlie, is it? On top of this, back in March, when Rupert Lowe launched the rape gang inquiry, Charlie Peters had the same issue I had with it. Former Reform MP Rupert Lowe announces he's launching his own national inquiry. It won't be statutory, so it won't be able to compel witnesses or demand evidence, which many survivors and campaigners see as crucial to any future investigations. But now he's defending it. Now he's saying, yeah, actually it is useful. It's come out with useful information, such as reposting already public information. They've not even started on the witness interviews yet, for goodness sake. So far, it has been a PR stunt. I understand these things take time, and I wouldn't have an issue with that. What I have an issue with is someone who 180s like this, and, well, I can only give you one explanation for it. All these people are trying to save the Tory party, and I do mean that. Sorry, but as mentioned, Charlie Peters' girlfriend is part of Next Gen Tories. They all have an interest in keeping the Tory party going. It's for their future careers and jobs. Adam Wren, him and his girlfriend, both also involved in the Tory party. Tory MPs, well, I don't need to tell you how they're involved with the Tory party. Rupert Lowe recently got a Tory seat on a select committee. He's constantly working with them with Restore Britain, getting them to sign mass deportation bills after obviously they well, they were involved with mass importation. It's just ridiculous. We're at a point where I'm afraid the Tory party has to go. It has to go. Look at what the Tories are doing now. That we have Nigel Farage making a suggestion of basically turning Parliament into a bit of a court for the people at the very top of the grooming gang's cover-up. Basically they say, oh, have a national inquiry, just wait on Labour. No, we're not waiting 5 years for this. Don't be ridiculous. What an absolutely moronic point to make. Honestly, I don't think I could be annoyed at these people, but there we go. I think I'll leave it there. Right, if you enjoy what I do, please do subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, also become a channel member, and leave super chats and super thanks as well, of course. On top of that, tonight we have the gaming stream. I've swapped it for tomorrow with the Tosh Talks because, well, we needed guests for Tosh Talks and they could only make Wednesday. Friday we've got Wolves of Westminster out. Saturday, Laughing at the Guardian with some whamming. Right, with that, that's everything I had for you for today. So once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.